Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 421 of So You Want to Be a Writer. My name's Valerie Khoo, and I am CEO of the Australian Writers Centre and your co-host. And I'm here with the very clever Alison Tate, also known as A.L. Tate, in the lead up to the launch of her next book. How are you, Al?
Well, very clever, apparently.
Yeah.
It's quite exciting. Quite exciting, really.
Are you excited, though?
Oh, I am excited, but look, it's as you know, it's been a very busy few weeks, months for me. The house move has been successfully, facilitated. So I'm here because, of course, the last couple of episodes have been fabulous story sessions, mostly because I didn't have Wi-Fi and was surrounded by boxes, which, I just feel that people, if you're thinking about moving house, my suggestion is just stay where you are.
What?
Well, it's just hard, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
You've done it.
Yeah.
Painful. Painful. My friend Alex reckons that it was painful for me because I had to look at every single thing in my house that I had collected for, over 10 years and make a decision about whether I wanted to keep it or not. And that is very stressful, I find. But anyway.
Yes.
I'm here.
Takes up a lot of brain space. Yes, you're here.
Most of my belongings have made it with me. And so now I am at the point of, preparing for the Wolf's Howl launch, which is exciting, but feels very near. Like normally I'm more organised than I am right now, 2 weeks before it happens. But I'm winging it, people. And you know that winging it, when it comes to this kind of stuff is probably not really my favourite thing to do. But we're gonna make it work.
If there are some new listeners, tell us what the Wolf's Howl is.
Well, the Wolf's Howl is book 2 in the Maven and Reeve mystery series. It's an upper middle grade series for kids around sort of 12 to 14, but good readers of 10. It is about Maven, who is a maid, and Reeve, who is a squire. And in book 2, they have travelled to the far-flung reaches of Cartref, which is the kingdom in which they live, and they must solve the mystery of a woman who's disappeared. The cook has disappeared, and they need to find her. And because cooks are pretty important, right? An army marches on its stomach, etc., etc. Yes, so it was a lot of fun to write. It was interesting book to write because I wrote most of it last year when we were all in the throes of COVID and intense lockdown and, the HSC and all sorts of various things. So it was an interesting one for me to write. It was, generally speaking, when I write a novel for kids, there's a certain amount of, fun and lightness to it. I had to search for the fun and lightness. I mean, I think it's there in the book, but it wasn't there in my process, which I think was interesting. I think because of the way everything was in the world at the time. So I'm looking forward to the reviews.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited. So you're doing a bunch of things. What kind of things are you doing associated with the launch?
Right. So, as I said, I'm only kind of really just starting to make plans, but save the date for the 10th of August, particularly if you have children. I am going to be doing an online launch in the Your Kids Next Read Facebook community for kids. So it's going to be like an author talk where I'll be talking about, the ideas behind the book and writing tips and all that sort of stuff, aimed at kids. And I think that's going to be a Zoom, so it'll make it easier for kids to ask questions and do all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that'll be the 10th of August.
So that's specifically for kids?
Specifically for kids, that one, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, just because a lot of the stuff that I do online is often aimed at parents and other writers and things like that. So I thought, you know what, like given the situation where, that we're in sort of a series of rolling lockdowns again, I thought let's do something, for kids. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So that's the 10th of August. Stand by for details. I've got a whole lot of stuff that's just sort of in train. I'm writing blog posts. I'm organising videos. I've got some ideas to do some things on Instagram that Book Boy is going to be helping me with.
Handy to have a book boy.
Well, he's been exploring with his music stuff. He's been, trying different things, and he sort of said to me, "Oh, I'll help you, do this and this, and we'll see how that goes." So I'm going to try some things on Instagram. Yeah, I'm just doing what I can because a lot of my stuff I've got a whole lot of like a week in Sydney of school visits and author talks
Mhm.
planned for book week, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
Yep.
I had a whole lot of things, the Shoalhaven Readers and Writers Festival. I was going to launch my book face to face at that, but
Mhm.
unfortunately that's had to be postponed due to the lockdowns and things.
Mhm.
So, you kind of have to be, what is the word? Nimble. I'm trying to be
Yes.
nimble and just work out things that I can do, under the current circumstances. So that's what I'm doing.
Cool.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you and I are doing for our wonderful listener community, also save the date, is on the 28th of July. So coming up really soon, we are
Yes.
having another block party. So we had one of these last year because, we were supposed to have our fabulous event at Vivid, and then
Yes.
Vivid got completely cancelled. So we took the party online and we had a block party, and Vivid's been moved again this year. So
I
anyway,
know.
we thought that we would still get our community together, and because we'd really love to see you guys, we're going to organize a block party on Zoom as well, where we're going to, you know, we're going to have some drinks.
We're gonna we're gonna have a wine, aren't we? That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
Or,
we're
if you're doing
saying it
dry
now.
July, have a soft
Yes.
drink. Have a
Have a
soft
soft
drink.
drink, that's fine.
BYO, whatever it is that you like to drink. Cup of
Yes.
tea is fine.
Yep, yep,
But
yep.
yes, come along, join us. Bring some cheese. I always like a bit of
Yes.
cheese with my chat.
White
So
Costello I'm
yeah.
bringing, and
Oh, there you
quince
go.
paste
Oh,
and
okay.
rosé.
You're sorted, aren't you? Look
I
at
am
you go.
sorted. I've
I
got a
haven't
system.
I haven't actually thought that far ahead yet. But yeah, we're going to chat, aren't we? We're going to talk about
Yes.
books, writing, just
Yep. And have a
stuff.
conversation with our listeners as well. So
Yes.
we would love to see you. Make sure you put that in your diary. So it's going to be in the evening at wine o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Not 1 o'clock, but wine o'clock on the 28th, Wednesday, the 28th of July. So looking forward to catching up with everyone then. Now, you also have a shout out.
I do. I have a shout out to community member Anna Weatherly, who sent me the loveliest email during the week. I honestly, I was so touched and I feel so blessed. She wanted to let me know that she had included me and the Australian Writers Centre in the acknowledgements section of her new novel, which is
Woohoo!
called The Widow's Follower, and it's out online. And I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. But she has a website, I think it's annaweatherly.com.au, but I will also put that in the show notes. She has put it in the acknowledgements because she did my Build Your Author platform course, and also the 30-day creative writing bootcamp course that I have with the Australian Writers Centre. And the acknowledgement reads, authors everywhere generously share their perspectives on writing and publishing. There are too many to name, so I will only mention two: Alison
Woohoo!
Tate of the Australian Writers Centre and Bronwyn Parry. So I am incredibly chuffed. I have to say that I'm very lucky. I'm lucky enough to have been in several acknowledgements pages, and
Nice.
well, yes, I'm going to maybe start a little collection of my acknowledgements pages.
Mhm.
And I know how important it is to be there, because it's very precious real estate, your acknowledgements page, and I know that from
Yes.
writing my own. And it's, you put people in there that really mattered along the journey of that particular book. So Anna, I
Mm.
am just absolutely chuffed to that you have, to have put me on your acknowledgements page. The
Yep.
Widow's Follower is a crime, fiction, murder mystery and suspense novel set in Sydney in 1919.
Mm.
Oh, here we go. I do have a website here, annaweatherlyauthor.com.au. And she even says it's thanks to me that she has a website. And so I'm very excited. So yeah, thanks so much for that, Anna. I really appreciate the shout out.
So everyone check out Anna's webpage. And we also have a big shout out to a couple of different people in our community at the Australian Writers Centre,
We
don't
do.
we?
Are you going to do that, or am I going
Well,
to do
I
that?
am, but I just lost the link.
While Valerie googlays in the background, I'll just take over. So this week, Text Publishing announced the 7 shortlisted manuscripts in the running for the $10,000 Text Prize for
Oh,
young
yes.
adult and children's writing. And very excitingly, there were
Mm.
some familiar names on the list.
Very exciting. Very
Have you
excited.
found your link, or do you want me?
Yes. So we have a couple of graduates, Jacqueline Moore, who has been shortlisted for her children's story, The Curious Case of the Cocoa Bean. And Jacqueline's done several courses at the Australian Writers Centre, including How to Write for Children and Young Adults. And very, very cool, shortlisted. Also on the shortlist is Emily Morschek, These Cursed Waters.
Ooh.
Yes, a YA fantasy novel. And Emily's done novel writing essentials, and she's published, she's authored a number of short stories. So congratulations to both Jacqueline and Emily. We're so excited for you because it's no mean feat to get on the shortlist. So fantastic.
No, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And the
because
winner's
it's
going to be
great acknowledgement.
announced. The winner will be announced on the 29th of July,
Yes.
2021, along with the recipient of the Steph Bow Mentorship, which is awarded to one of the shortlisted authors. So very exciting, and it's a terrific prize if you are writing for children and young adults. If that's your dream, you need to keep an eye on that text prize. It has absolutely skyrocketed the careers of many Australian authors. So it's definitely one to aim for next year. So have a look at the text prize website, which I would tell you what that was, but I don't know, so you might have to Google it. We'll put it in the show notes. But check out the text prize website and have a look at what they're looking for, so that you can read the shortlist, the winner this year, and anything else, because they often publish a couple off the shortlist as well. So read them to get an idea of the kinds of things they're looking for, because you want to be aiming for yours for next year.
Brilliant. And just go to textpublishing.com.au.
Thanks for that.
All right, we have a competition this week. We have 3 copies of A Woman of Intelligence by Karen Tanabe, an exhilarating tale of one remarkable woman's journey to find her purpose and herself in post-war America. As a single girl in 1940s Manhattan, Katerina was a translator at the newly formed United Nations, devoting her days to her work and the promise of world peace, and her nights to cocktails and a promise of a good time. Now the wife of a beloved pediatric surgeon and heir to a shipping fortune, Katerina is trapped in a gilded cage, desperate to escape the constraints of domesticity. So when she's approached by the FBI and asked to join their ranks as an informant, Katerina seizes the opportunity. Navigating the demands of the FBI and the secrets of the KGB, she becomes enthralled by her secret mission, but as those closest to her lose their covers and their lives, Katerina's secret soon threatens to ruin her. So we have 3 copies of A Woman of Intelligence to give away. Go to writercentre.com.au/win. Entries close on the 26th of July. So writercentre.com.au/win. Now, Al, are you ready for the word of the week?
Yes, I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, hit you. This is so cool. Okay, orthoepy. Orthoepy. That's ORTHOEPY. Orthoepy.
Does it have to do with feet?
No, but it sounds like it would have to do with feet, right? But it doesn't.
No, okay.
It is a noun, and it is the study of correct pronunciation.
Oh, Val. This is perfect for you. This is ideal. Yep. Did you study very carefully how to say orthoepy just to get it right?
Well, yeah, I'm not even exactly sure.
Or the orthoepy.
Oh, dear. So next time someone calls you a grammar pedant because you insist on using the Oxford comma or not, you can correct them and say that you are an orthoepist.
No, you're not. Not necessarily. Because it's pronunciation. What do Oxford commas have to do with pronunciation?
Because I'm just mixing my metaphors here.
You've just made a total mess of that. I'm not even... She's talking about punctuation and not pronunciation, and I feel as though, yeah. Okay.
Wanting to see whether you'd pick that up, you see.
See, it was a test, but I'm very clever, remember? You even said it yourself at the top of the episode. You said the very clever Alison Tate, and here I am correcting you.
All right, orthoepy, and that was the word of the week. This podcast is brought to you by the Australian Writers Centre and our popular course, Creative Writing Stage 1. This course is the perfect way to unlock your creativity and explore the world of writing. You'll learn how to create memorable characters, believable dialogue and captivating plots, all in a supportive environment in this 5-week online course with your very own tutor giving you personal feedback each week. Here's what Joanna Nell had to say.
It almost sounds a little bit melodramatic to say, but discovering the courses at the Australian Writers really did actually change my life. Through discovering writing, I have completely had a new career. I must admit that I feel a much more sort of fulfilled and balanced person as a result of that, finding a channel for that creativity. The Creative Writing Stage 1 course was exactly the approach that I needed, that sort of nuts and bolts, step-by-step approach. One of the things I found the most useful in the course was actually also one of the most terrifying at the start, which was giving and receiving of critique. It really is a very important way that a writer can improve. The other great aspects of being a member of the Australian Writers Centre is that sense of community. Finding people who are like-minded, your people, your tribe. I'm the author of The Single Ladies of Jacaranda Retirement Village, which is my debut novel, and so really it was completely a dream come true. Often meet many people who say that they would like to write a book but don't know where to start, or they have a story but they don't have the time to do it. And I think that this is where somewhere like the Australian Writers Centre can really show them the way to do it, and it certainly did for me. And I think I'm living proof of what they can achieve.
If you'd like to find out more, go to writerscentre.com.au/creative writing. All right, so shall we move on to our writer in residence this week?
Let's.
Good.
Let's do
I'm
that.
glad you said that.
What an excellent idea.
I loved having this chat with Amanda Hampson. Now, Amanda has written many, many books. She actually came to the writing life later in life. She's written The Olive Sisters, The French Perfumer, The Yellow Villa, 60 Summers, and her latest book, which was just such a treat to read, is Lovebirds. Amanda also happens to live just down the road from me, but she's also and is also a presenter at the Australian Writers Centre, and people are absolutely loving Amanda's courses, the ones that she's tutoring in creative writing and novel writing. So, we have a really good old chat about her writing process, about Lovebirds, and about her writing journey. So let's have a chat with Amanda Hampson. Thanks so much for joining us today, Amanda.
Thank you for having me, Valerie.
Your latest book, Lovebirds, I just devoured it. I loved it. For their readers who, if there are some listeners who haven't got their hands on a copy yet, and they should, just can you tell us what it's about?
Well, look, I found it very difficult to say what it's about because it is, I think you'll agree, kind of multi-layered. It's in not just two time frames. I think it's simpler to say the past and the present, but different periods of the past. So just to stick with the present day, we meet Elizabeth at the funeral of her best friend, and we can kind of see that she's a little bit out of kilter with some of the people there, and she's a bit of a prickly personality. And we then find that she's a bit offside with members of her family, but she ends up being responsible for her 15-year-old grandson. And he has got on the wrong side of the law, and she takes responsibility but finds him to be actually quite elusive. He has his own sort of life that he leads, as 15-year-olds do. And she ends up taking him on a road trip, up into northern New South Wales to find the love of her life, Ray, whom she hasn't seen for 30 years. So his grandfather, who he's never met. In the alternate chapters, we go back to the defining periods of her life. When she was 10, when she met her best friend Ginny, in her teen years, when she fell in love with Ray, and the various experiences in her life that have made her the woman that we are getting to know during this road trip, I think is the best way to explain it.
made you, how did this idea of this book form?
I've been thinking about it for quite a long time, and it's related to, my original thought was related to the fact that as you get older, you seem to be, women particularly, become quite marginalised. And, you know, you have your friends that you've known for 30 or 40 years or longer, and you see them being dismissed by people or overlooked or not even seen. And so I wanted to show, and yet as your friend, you see them in all their different dimensions, you know, all of these different things about them. You see them of every age they ever were. So I wanted to take this woman like Elizabeth as a sort of every woman and show the experiences of her life and how they have made her into this particular person. So then, you know, it just becomes a matter of looking at, I mean, I'm 66, so I can look back and say, well, what were the things that happened during our lifetime that would have caused that? Well, when we were young, you know, we often left school early. I left school at 16. It was considered that education was wasted on women back then. And because they were just going to get married, that was your prime thing in life, was to get that engagement ring on your finger and get married and have children. At that time in the, you know, sort of early 70s, women often had to leave work when they were married because they were taking a man's job. So very different world. My teen years, they were very overshadowed for boys by the prospect of being conscripted and sent to Vietnam against their will. And that's turned out way worse than anybody could have anticipated. So I just wanted to show all of these different things that have happened to women like myself, even though none of these things happened to me, over this 50-year period.
And so I want to come back to the book and talk about a bunch of things that are in there. But if we can just provide some context to listeners, because you've written several novels, if you can just give us a little bit of a potted career history of, you know, what you did before you became a full-time writer, just so that people can get an understanding of, you know, your career so far.
My so-called career, I wouldn't exactly call it a career path. Well, as I said, I left school at 16. I had the unfortunate bad luck of getting pregnant, and I was kicked out of home. So I had a year, or the rest of that year until I gave birth to my son, basically trying to keep a roof over my head. Then I went home, and basically my schooling was over then. So I went to work in an office, and after that I worked in offices for a few years, just different offices like insurance offices and things like that. I married young and convinced my husband to go and live in London, which had been a great dream of mine. And when I was there, I just did those jobs that you do. I worked as a car cleaner. I worked in an office. I worked for an events company. So that we could travel and see Europe and do all those kind of things. Then I came to Australia, but all of that time I was still writing. I had always wanted to be a writer from when I was a child. I grew up in an isolated area in New Zealand, and I read and I wanted to be a writer. That was just it. And I used to often think, if I didn't have to be a writer, I would like to do this other thing. So that's always been there for me. So when I came to Australia, I just continued to write, and gradually I started to write in my job, and then I started to write non-fiction articles. I did courses exactly like the courses that the Writers' Centre runs, short courses in very specific things. And so then I started to get articles published in Panorama magazine and Architectural Review, and I know nothing about architecture. Everything is research, as you know. And then I had an article about Martin Sharp published in the Australian magazine. And I sort of just went on from there. Then I wrote a non-fiction book called Battles with the Baby Gods. And when I'd finished it, I had somebody look at it, in terms of editing, and did the work on it, sent it to Transworld Publishing. And 12 weeks later, they rang me and said, we'd like to publish it. So I haven't the kind of opposite story from everybody else. I don't have very much formal education. I'm completely self-educated and, can talk about 19th and 20th century literature till the cows come home. But I have not had a problem getting published. The Olive Sisters went to Penguin. They said they'd like to publish it. It was as simple as that. And I think that is partly because I haven't come from any expectation that those doors will be open for me. So I've had to work and make a book as good as you would find it in a bookshop before I send it to the publisher. And I that's the only thing I can think that is the key to having those doors open quite quickly.
So let's take Lovebirds as a real example in terms of determining the story, what happens in the story. At what point do you determine what happens in your story? At the start and then you write it? Or do you just start with a little bit of an idea and just see what happens?
Pantser, a little bit of an idea. So I had the idea that Elizabeth would go to this funeral, and then I'm really looking at making that character come alive on the page. So, we have her in her flat, so I'm picturing her there. I'm picturing her talking to Eric. Then
We need to explain who Eric is.
So Eric is her buddy. And Eric has turned out to be quite the star of the book, let me say.
Absolutely.
Oh, Eric is my favourite.
Yeah.
Because he's not a running interference. He's not really a helpful budgie. He's always saying something that's really inappropriate at the time. So then I take her to the funeral and have her have conversations with people. And, I hate to make it sound all magical and arty-farty, but it's really just getting to know her through those conversations. What do people say to her? How does she respond to that? And then I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm getting to see you now. You're feeling a little bit on the edge of things here. And so I think you go 20, 30,000 words just getting to know that character, and then layering in the plot that will, I guess, give her what she needs rather than what she wants.
But are you saying that it was through the process of writing that you realised that the character of Elizabeth was on the edges of things and, was a bit prickly and all of that? Or had you already decided that aspect of her personality and you wrote that into the first
little bit of both. It's sort of, feeling that she's been single for a long time, and so she's not part of a little group. She's sort of recently left her job. She doesn't really know who she is. So I guess that's what I knew, and it wasn't until I put her into those conversations that she became a little bit more brittle and a little bit more combative. So then you can see that's kind of expanding the it's just like when you get to know anybody, you meet them, they say something, you make some estimation about that, but then, and they might say something rude, which I always love. I just adore rude people. And then later on they say something really witty and you're like, oh yes, okay, you're interesting. You've sparked my interest. So I guess it's exactly like that in real life.
So she's very vivid on the page, and you kind of read it and you go, oh, I know people just like her. But the other really well-drawn character is her grandson and her interactions with her grandson. And, the way teenagers speak, move, smell, all those sorts of things is very, there's a very specific way they do all of those things. And this character is so realistic. What did you do to make this character, get the nuances of the dialogue and all of those sorts of things so that he would come alive?
well, I just brought up a boy, basically. I had a 15-year-old son. You know, all the senses were engaged. And look, I just did find it fascinating, very frustrating at times. It's not an experience you forget. But the way he would kind of speak in code or in single words, his kind of attitudes, and there's a lethargy comes on them that they would spend hundreds of hours perfecting a skateboard trick, but not walk across a room or make a sandwich. So I just found it really, really fascinating. And so I had, being a writer, I have notebooks and all of that hoo-ha. So I had collected some of the expressions that he used to use, but I also have some friends. So he's in his 20s now, but I have some friends nearby who have a 15-year-old. So I could ask him, some of the various things. Like, what do people call, people are a bit hopeless now, whatever. He'd say a kook. And I'd say, well, what if they do this? Oh, we call them a kook. And I said to him one day, so what do you think it feels like to be a kook? He said, you tell me. I was like, oh, that's the best. I love that. The look on his face had got me. So I would go around there and I would see him doing the things that I had just written Zach doing in the book. So I knew I was on track with that. But it was really fun to write because you have to reduce every paragraph to 2 or 3 words or one. And it has to be delivered in either dripping sarcasm or at least scorn. So, and then for him to be angry with Elizabeth because of her neglect, and then to kind of edge him a little bit across the line and level the playing field between them was really the development that I was bringing into that.
Now, apart from Elizabeth and Zach, and obviously there are other key characters who are, ranging from colourful to, a bit more dour. You've mentioned one of the other key characters is Eric, this bird, who steals some of the scenes. I have to ask, do you have a bird?
No, I don't. Everybody's been asking me that. No, I'm not really a pet person at all.
So how did Eric come into it?
Well, he just flew in and there was nothing I could do. I think the idea was, when you have a character who lives alone and is very introspective in their own little world, it's very limiting from a writing point of view because, you can have him, you don't want to have him talking to the furniture and the cutlery and whatnot. So I thought, okay, well, she's bound to have a pet. She's bound to have tried to mitigate her loneliness in some way. And so a cat, no, a dog, no. Oh, a budgie. So I can read a whole book about budgies and watch budgies on YouTube and find all these different things about the way budgies move and what they do. And but as soon as Eric got there, as soon as he was on the page, he did, you can have him saying quite predictable things, but then you start to develop a character like that as a device. Well, what if he says things that other people have said? What if he says things that she said 3 days ago? And so that was evolving right through the book where I'd go back and say, oh, no, I think in chapter 3, Eric can say this, and then this will link up with this chapter later on.
Now, you've said that you're a pantser, so you start off with this idea or a premise, but obviously a book needs an entire narrative arc. It needs a climax. It needs, a satisfying resolution. Do you write your way towards something that you know is going to happen, at least, and you pants a bit in between, or do you also not know what's going to happen in sort of the big ending kind of thing?
Well, I write uplit, so I'm going to have an upbeat ending, and an ending that hints at something better in the future. So to me, it's almost like a stage play where the curtain opens, we see the characters during this period of time, and the curtain closes and their lives go on. So I suppose what I did know is that there would be some kind of redemption, and some kind of peace for the characters when they had gone through all their travails. So I have to kind of let it evolve, because I think with what I'm trying to create really authentic stories and authentic characters. And I think if I had the ending already nutted out in my head and I was working towards it, it would take away from that authenticity.
That's interesting. All right, so when you're writing, can you tell us, like in the throes of, first draft, and you're getting it out of your head, do you have a routine? What does your day look like? Maybe take me through your day from when you wake up.
You don't want to hear it's a complete muddle, do you? Well, I used to write a lot, just wake up, have my cup of tea and start writing. But since I've found out how unhealthy it is to sit around all the time, as they say, smoking's the new, sitting's the new smoking, I do my exercise first, and I try to be at my desk by 9 o'clock.
What do you exercise? Take me through what you do.
Exercise. I do yoga, I do aerobics, I do walking. In the summer I swim. So I do high intensity stuff. It's pretty much something every day.
Great.
And because I like to be fit, and I'm also quite vain, let me tell you. And well, I was brought up with a father that was, if you put on a bit of weight, he would make a comment like, you're wearing away to a warehouse. So I think that's just put this consciousness in my head. Okay. So then I try to keep my mornings quite free. I wish I could say that there's a whole lot in my head wanting to leap from my fingers onto the keyboard, but that is not the case. I sit down and think, but I just think there's everything is to do with showing up, is just sitting there. The keyboard's not going to come to you. You've got to go to the keyboard. And so you today I wrote a scene. I thought, this is just leaden. I've got that character on my shoulder going, this is terrible. Oh, you've forgotten how to do it, but you're going to die of embarrassment. Da, da, da. And then you get through it. I use a Pomodoro, so I put I have the 30-minute timer on my computer. Yeah. So the Pomodoro, the little tomato. Yes. And at the end of that 30 minutes, I get a 10-minute break, and I do all my housework during those 10 minutes. So the strength of that is, yes, it's very speedy. I literally throw everything in the dishwasher, put it on, slam that, run the vacuum cleaner around. The beauty of it is that stops you trying to do that before you sit down and write. Because if you try, housework is the death of creativity. Yeah. And because there will always be something to do. It's continuous. It never stops. And so when you know that's going to come in your breaks, there's no excuse. The dishes are in the sink. It doesn't matter what it is. You're going to have these breaks that you need to get up and you need to be active. So I do that, and that seems to do it. And so the Pomodoro rule, so I can't leave that keyboard until the bell goes. And so even I'm thinking, I've got no juice left in the tank. I don't know what she's going to say. Do you just write something? While you're doing the dishwasher, you think, no, she wouldn't say that to him. She would tell his secretary. Yes, that's what I'll do. So then I'll go back and fix that bit up, and then I'm going. It's cranked up and it's going.
So do you have a goal of a
sound much more exciting than it actually is?
No, it's really interesting. Do you have a set number of 30-minute sessions that you want to achieve every day, or how do you measure when you're done? You know what I mean, for the day?
I have to do 3, and if I can do 4, that's all the better. But the fact is, you do get tired. It is, to me, I know some people write 8 hours a day. I don't know how they do it, but I find 3 hours of dragging that stuff out of my imagination is tiring. And so if I've done 3, I'm happy.
3 hours or 3 30-minute
3
sessions?
Pomodoros, 3, yes. So an hour and a half, basically.
Yes. Wow. Okay. And so what time do you start?
About 9.
Oh, okay. So you do your exercise very early.
Yes, that's right.
And so what happens after that? If you do that, and say you spend 3 hours, it's 12 then. What happens then?
I have my lunch. No, I do in the afternoon. I do tasks, chores. I answer emails. I will do research. At the moment, I'm working on a book set in 1965. So I'm looking through. You can get a subscription to the Herald for 48 hours and look through all the newspapers in the months that I'm concerned with in 1965, see what people are thinking and talking about. Went to the library today and picked up a couple of relevant books. So I'll do there's always lots of supporting things you need to do, particularly around research. And you don't need to be fresh to do that. You can do that kind of thing when you're in the afternoon, when you're not as sparky.
So when you are researching for your book, so you're currently researching this, 1965, and in Lovebirds, one of the characters does go off to the war in Vietnam. Do you do your research, make sure you do your key research beforehand, or do you kind of write and then go, oh, I need to know this, I should research that this afternoon?
Correct, yeah. It's not till I know I'm coming up to something and I'm exploring that. So, the Vietnam War comes into the book, even though we never go to the war, we kind of see the ravages that it has on Ray. And so I had to read maybe 5 books, as well as talking to vets to just get a sense of what did people suffer? What was so destructive about it? So it's really, that's kind of my way of doing things, of becoming completely immersed in it, in a kind of, if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I could have talked to you about it for hours. Now it's gone out, it's just like dust. It's been brushed out. But I need to really fully understand it. And so I'll just make quick notes, but really it's just gone in. It's in there and it will come out where it needs to come out.
What was the hardest thing about writing this book?
Putting the words down. Oh, just making stories up. I think people underestimate it. It's so hard to go on day in, day out and just keep on doing it. I certainly, there was a point where I had gone down the wrong track, and I'd gone 3 chapters down the wrong track. And I could see it just didn't feel good. It just didn't feel right, didn't feel as though it had any. And so I just deleted those 3 chapters and went back to the point that felt solid and started again and did it quite differently.
So you say that it's really hard, but obviously you must enjoy it because this is your chosen, way to spend your time. So what do you find rewarding about it?
When you write one good sentence.
Why?
That's it. As you write one good sentence. So you're writing, and then you fix something up, and then you do a second draft, and you go, oh, that was good. That's it. It's just like this. I can't really describe it. It's just like this feeling of satisfaction, this real high. Oh, that is good. And then you're looking for another sentence like that.
Yes.
So I think that once you've got the first draft in place, that is really the hard part, because you are making up everything. You're making up every room, every person, every aspect, and you're making up the plot. You're making it all up. Once that first draft's in place, it's a joy, because then you are doing the writing part. Then you are crafting those sentences, then you're making it all work together. And, I like to write in a very, I put a lot of work into writing in a simple way, so that the story flows, flows. I don't do any, I don't do fancy metaphors or similes or anything that draws attention to the writing. I just want people to be immersed in the story and not really notice the writer, as per Strunk and White. Do not draw attention to yourself. So it's really, believe these characters. I don't know if you've had that experience. Sometimes you're reading a book and you think, it's fiction, but you think, I don't believe this. I think you're making it up.
Oh, yeah.
And That's what I don't want. I want it to be just people just be swept along in the story.
You're one of our wonderful teachers at the Australian Writers Centre. You teach creative writing. What do you enjoy about teaching writing?
Oh, well, you learn so much from it. And because I'm self-taught and autodidact, I just am learning all the time. And when you have to read other people's writing and you have to critique it, I suppose for me, it's like somebody who has taught themselves music, taught themselves to play an instrument. You haven't had that formal education, so you are gathering information from everything that you do. So when you read somebody's writing, you say, okay, that doesn't feel right. What is it about it that doesn't feel right? So you're using your intellect and your gut feeling to bring it together. So I think it's very rewarding to be able to help people with their writing, but you also are fine-tuning your own sensibilities at the same time.
And of course, what are your top 3 tips for people listening to this who want to write their own novel one day?
Well, firstly, start, obviously,
Yes.
and do a course. I think courses are enormously helpful because number one is you don't need a degree. That's obvious. You don't need a degree. And if people want to do a degree, that's fantastic. All education is great. But when I wrote The Olive Sisters, I did short courses. And when I needed to know something, I did a course on that. And so that really was a stepping stone to refining that work. So I think courses are fantastic. Also read in your genre, read outside your genre, and try to work out how it's done. Read critically, read aloud, even write down. You can take Dostoevsky and you can write down a page if you want to write like him. I think it's a little bit out of date, but you can actually write down with a pen and a piece of paper, and you will see how the sentences are formed, how that works in with a paragraph, which is exactly what musicians do. They listen to other people's music and they dissect that music. And I think number 3 is just do that little bit every day. Even if you do 100 words every day, it's keeping it in your subconscious, and your subconscious can be very generous in terms of, turning that material over and giving you new ideas, sparking new ideas.
Wonderful. So Lovebirds, congratulations on Lovebirds. Everyone should get a copy. The characters, the story, the humor. I don't want to do a spoiler, so I'll tell you offline my favorite scene in the book, which just had me, rolling around. Fantastic book. So congratulations and thank you so much for your time today, Amanda.
Thank you, Valerie.
There we go, Amanda Hampson. So everyone check out her book, Lovebirds. It's a cracker. So Al, what are you doing in the coming week?
Well, I've still got a couple of boxes to unpack and got to unearth the knife block. I'm not quite sure what happened to that.
Oh.
I know it's cutting. I have to tell you that cutting a sourdough loaf with a butter knife has not been very much fun. But any minute now, that's going to resurface, I'm sure. And yes, and I will be just working very hard on getting myself into some form of organisation for my launches and things like that. I'm hoping that I'll be able to tell you more about what I'll be doing next week. That's my plan.
Very exciting. How cool. I can't wait. Tell us all that. There's lots of some really good launches that are happening around now. And I love seeing how, as you say, authors are being nimble because things are being cancelled and stuff like that. But I am visiting my local bookshop who have set up kind of the cash register out the front so that we don't go in, and just bringing you the books to the front. So it's like ordering takeaway.
Oh, brilliant. Lovely. Very good.
All right, fantastic. Where do we find you online, Al?
You'll find me at alisontait.com, ALLISONTAIT.com. You will find me on Twitter at altait, ALTAIT, and you will find me on Facebook and Instagram at Alison Tait Writer. And you, Val, where do we find you?
You'll find me at Valerie Khoo, that's KHOO, on Twitter and Instagram, and over at valeriekhoo.com. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we look forward to chatting to you again next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to So You Want to Be a Writer. You'll find the show notes at writerscentre.com.au/podcast, or sign up for our awesome and often hilarious weekly newsletter at writerscentre.com.au/news, where you'll find writing resources, giveaways, competitions, and much more.